Amsterdam in 1667 was the richest city in the world, a place where merchants commanded fleets that circled the globe, where more books were published than in all of France, where religious refugees found sanctuary, and where a middle-class painter named Rembrandt had just died in relative poverty, despite creating some of history's greatest masterpieces. This was the Golden Age at its absolute peak, a city of just 200,000 souls that controlled a trading empire stretching from New Amsterdam on the Hudson River to the Spice Islands of Indonesia, from the slave posts of West Africa to the trading factories of Japan. The canals teemed with ships carrying pepper, silk, sugar, and tulip bulbs. Wealth flowed through counting houses where double-entry bookkeeping was transforming capitalism itself. Yet beneath the prosperity lurked poverty, religious tension, and the constant threat of war with England and France. Today, advanced AI technology allows us to transform 17th century paintings, engravings, and maps into photorealistic recreations, bringing this lost world back to life. Join me as we step into the Amsterdam our ancestors once knew, a city that invented modern finance, pioneered religious tolerance, and proved that a republic of merchants could rival the great monarchies of Europe. The harbor, gateway to the world. Stand on the waterfront near the IJ Harbor in 1667, and you're witnessing the busiest port in Europe, perhaps the world. The water is a forest of mass, hundreds of ships crowding the harbor, massive East Indiamen returning from months-long voyages to Asia, smaller flights carrying Baltic timber and grain, fishing boats from the North Sea, warships of the Dutch Navy. Watch that East India Company ship being unloaded. Its hold contains treasures that will transform European life. Pepper and cloves from the Moluccas, porcelain and silk from China, cotton textiles from India, coffee from Java. The spices alone are worth their weight in silver. A single successful voyage can make investors wealthy beyond imagination, though risks are enormous. Ships sink, crews die from disease, pirates attack. Perhaps 1 in 3 voyages fails completely, but the successful ones generate such profits that merchants keep investing. The Dutch East India Company, the VOC, is the world's first true multinational corporation. It issues shares that can be bought and sold on the Amsterdam Stock Exchange, the world's first formal stock market. The VOC has its own army, its own fleet, and authority to negotiate treaties and wage war. It's a profit-seeking enterprise with the powers of a sovereign state, making Amsterdam unimaginably wealthy. But look closer at the human cost. Those ships also carry enslaved people from West Africa to the Caribbean and Brazil. The VOC maintains brutal control over the Spice Islands, imposing monopolies, destroying competitors' crops, massacring resistors. The wealth flowing through Amsterdam is built on violence and exploitation on an industrial scale. The harbor itself is an engineering marvel. Amsterdam sits on swampy ground reclaimed from the sea through dikes and windmills. The entire city is built on millions of wooden pilings driven deep into mud. The canal system, expanded massively in the early 1600s, creates both transportation network and elegant residential districts. The smell is overwhelming: saltwater and tar, fish and exotic spices, hemp rope and sewage. The noise is constant: sailors shouting in a dozen languages, cargo being loaded, ship's bells, hammers from shipyards where new vessels are constantly under construction. The canals, liquid streets of gold. Walk along the Herengracht, the Gentleman's Canal, and you're strolling through one of the world's most elegant neighborhoods. The canal houses rise 4 or 5 stories, narrow but deep, their distinctive gabled facades decorated in Renaissance and classical styles. These aren't just homes, they're statements of wealth, each merchant competing to build something grander than his neighbors. Look at the architecture. The facades are narrow because property taxes are based on street frontage, encouraging tall, deep buildings. Those hooks jutting from the top? They're for hoisting furniture and goods to upper floors via the exterior because the staircases inside are too narrow and steep. The interiors are surprisingly luxurious. Oak paneling, expensive wallpaper, paintings covering walls. Delftware pottery fills cabinets. These merchants collect art voraciously. A successful trader might own 30 or 40 paintings, creating private galleries showcasing Dutch mastery of light and everyday life. But the canals themselves are less romantic than tourists imagine. They're working waterways used for transportation, commerce, and unfortunately, sewage disposal. Chamber pots are emptied into canals. Industrial waste flows in from breweries, tanneries, and dye works. The water is brown, foul-smelling, occasionally choked with garbage. In summer, the stench is overwhelming. In winter, when canals freeze solid, they become impromptu highways and skating rinks. Walk the streets and notice the diversity. Amsterdam is a magnet for immigrants and refugees. Portuguese Jews fleeing the Inquisition have established a thriving community, building magnificent synagogues. Philosopher Baruch Spinoza lives here, grinding lenses while revolutionizing Western thought with radical ideas about God and nature that scandalize traditional believers. French Huguenots, Protestant refugees fleeing Catholic persecution, have brought textile skills. Germans, Scandinavians, even some English, all find opportunity here. The city's relative religious tolerance attracts talent that enriches economy and culture. You'll hear multiple languages on every street, see different styles of dress, observe various religious practices coexisting in ways impossible in most European cities. Rembrandt, beauty and bankruptcy. Walk through the Jordaan, a working-class neighborhood, and you'll find where Rembrandt van Rijn died just 2 months ago in October 1667. His death received little notice. The man who painted the Night Watch and countless masterpieces died in relative obscurity and poverty, his grand house seized by creditors years earlier. Rembrandt's fall illustrates artistic success's precarious nature. In the 1640s, he was Amsterdam's most celebrated painter, commanding high prices, living luxuriously. But his style, dramatic lighting and psychological depth, fell out of fashion. Commissions dried up. His spending didn't adjust. By 1656, he declared bankruptcy. The inventory of his possessions reveals extraordinary culture. Paintings by Italian masters, classical sculptures, exotic weapons, shells and minerals, prints by Dürer and Mantegna. All sold to pay creditors, and Rembrandt spent his final years painting for dealers on commission. But Dutch painting in 1667 is flourishing. Unlike Italian or French art serving church and court, Dutch painting serves the middle class. Merchants, shopkeepers, even prosperous artisans commission portraits, buy landscapes, collect genre scenes. The market produces thousands of paintings annually. Walk into any middle-class home, and you'll see paintings covering walls, serene landscapes, seascapes showing ships, still lifes of flowers and food, genre scenes of taverns and households. Art is democratic here, no longer the exclusive preserve of nobility and church. Artists like Johannes Vermeer in Delft are creating masterpieces that won't be fully appreciated for centuries. Vermeer's domestic interiors sell for modest prices to local patrons. He's struggling financially, forced to run an art dealing business. He'll die in debt in 1675. The threat of war, England and France. In 1667, Amsterdam faces external threats. The Second Anglo-Dutch War is in its final year, a conflict over trade routes and colonial possessions. Just months ago, in June 1667, the Dutch Navy achieved a stunning victory. The raid on the Medway, sailing into the Thames estuary, burning English warships and towing away the Royal Navy flagship. It's the worst defeat in English naval history. The raid demonstrates Dutch naval prowess, but also reveals the stakes. This is existential struggle between two Protestant maritime powers competing for global trade control. The peace treaty signed at Breda in July 1667 gives New Amsterdam to England, where it becomes New York, while the Dutch gain Suriname and favorable trade terms. But a larger threat looms: France. Louis XIV is building French power relentlessly. In just 5 years, in 1672, France will invade, nearly destroying the Dutch state in what the Dutch call the rampjaar, the disaster year. Only by opening the dikes and flooding the countryside will the Dutch stop the French advance. Amsterdam's prosperity depends on peace and open trade. The city's wealth makes it a target, and its republican government seems vulnerable to absolute monarchies surrounding it. Yet the Dutch have advantages. naval power, financial sophistication, and desperate determination of a small nation that must innovate to survive. The reality behind the Golden Age. Amsterdam in 1667 is a city of contradictions. It's wealthy beyond measure yet vulnerable. It's religiously tolerant yet still exclusionary. It produces sublime art while many artists struggle. It pioneers capitalism while exploiting colonized peoples across the globe. Walking these streets means encountering both magnificence and misery. The canal houses are elegant, but working-class neighborhoods are crowded and unsanitary. The paintings celebrate domestic virtue, but real households face disease and child mortality. The trading empire brings spices and silk, but it's built on slavery and violence. Yet something genuinely remarkable is happening. A small republic is proving that representative government can work, that religious tolerance is economically advantageous, and that capitalism can generate unprecedented wealth. These aren't abstract lessons but lived realities, visible in Amsterdam's streets, canals, and institutions. Understanding Amsterdam in 1667 helps us grasp both the promise and problems of modernity. This is where capitalism matures, where global trade networks form, where art becomes democratic. But it's also where colonialism's brutality and inequality's persistence reveal themselves starkly. This was Amsterdam in 1667, the richest city in the world at the height of its golden age. If you enjoyed this step back in time, please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss where we're going next. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the past.